All right, there should be sound, and there should be me. Welcome to 52 Miniatures. My name is Alex, and this is live stream number 29. It's cold and snowy Stockholm, and I hope you're doing well. I'm looking a bit dark, as always. I should probably go fiddle a camera. How's everyone doing? There we are, that's better. Hello, Mark from Montana. Good to see you yesterday. We had a Discord hangout. 52 Miniature patrons get access to a Discord channel, and we had a bit of a hangout last evening Swedish time, which would be morning US time. And Mark was there. Good to see you there, Mark. Hello, Alison. How are you doing? I hope you're well. Yeah. Juicy milk. I've been well. It's hot over where you are. Where are you? Because it can't be here, because that does not correspond with what's happening right now over here. Aditya, hello. How are you doing? Miniature Misfit, not bad. Ignoring the grey skies. It was actually all right here today. Okay, so now I'm a bit too bright. Sorry, I'm fiddly with these things. I'll be right there. Okay. It was pretty all right here today. There was sort of a vague resemblance of sunshine, which means that, it's just not gray. It's like light gray. So I actually went for a run. Oh, I can tip the whole table. Okay. Which was good. Magpie, how are you doing? And Banana Lover. Hello there, Dave Edens from Tennessee. Hope you're doing well. Juicy Milk is from South Africa. That's Southern Africa. That's right. I recall. So many nicknames to keep track of. I can imagine the weather's different from Sweden. Jan Andersson, how are you doing? Good motivation for staying indoors, snow and cold outside, and a nice live stream on the tube. I hope it'll be nice. I enjoy them, that's for sure. Clyde Dashing, how are you doing? I hope you're well, sir. Roads are ice, can't go for a run without killing self. Yeah, we had quite a bit of snow, and it hasn't as of yet melted. It will in a few days, I think, but there's quite a bit of snow, and so it's still sort of crunchy underfoot, which tends to be pretty safe. But it'll all melt in a few days, and then it'll freeze again, and then emergency services will be activated once more. Papa Nurgle's mixing spoon. How you doing? Good morning to you. Hello, Jamie Mayers. How are you doing? Good to see you. Shellshock Phoenix. How are you? I think I've been seeing your war transformed stuff, right, on Instagram. As I said, there's a lot of nicknames to keep track of, and I can hardly keep track of who I am. And so, who are you? All you people. Cot from Prague, how are you doing? Been to Prague once, twice, maybe, long time ago. It was a lot of fun. Hello, Matt and Gabriel. Tim from Wales, I hope you're doing well. Gabriel asks, how is the war game table coming along? The weather's nice. It's been snowing. No, it's coming along. There's half of a board behind me over here, which was the half I did in the last video, and then I started working on the other half and realized that I needed to complicate things, as I always do, and so there was a bit of an issue, which was that when me and my friend Carl did the layout of the board, sort of sketched it up on a paper, he sort of strategically placed two hills, smaller hills. There's a big hill on this half, but then on the other half there's like two smaller hills, just to sort of create some kind of line of sight blocking and that kind of stuff. On the sketch, it was, I knew it was hills, but it was more like, there's something here and there's something there. And I swapped out the hills for bunkers, because bunkers are cool. Only the issue with bunkers is they're usually, in the ground. They're not excessively elevated. And I didn't really think much about it until I started thinking about it and realized that my sort of line of sight blocking hills had vanished and were instead bunkers that are dug into the ground. So I've spent some time elevating one of those bunkers, building a 2-story bunker. I can actually, it's pretty cool. Give me a second. Because I'm a fiddly little fella, it's magnetized. So this is the little bunker that I built out of XPS foam, but it's actually got magnets in it. So and this is the roof of the bunker underneath. So I can just plop this on the bunker that's already there, in ways creating a 2-story bunker, which at least, it brings a bit of more visual interest to the center of the board, but it's also, thus more elevated and at least is some kind of sight blocker. So this was a fun little project. I'm kind of happy with that little bombed out bunker. And that build, together with an interview with Freddie Silburn-Slater, who is the author of the game A War Transformed, that sort of inspired me to build this table, will be released in video form tomorrow. In theory, was working on the thumbnail right over there just now before the live stream started. So it'll be a video on scratch building a bunker and an interview with Freddie about the game, which is cool. It was a great chat we had. He's a really nice guy. And it was actually, I think we spoke for about 2 or 2.5 hours or more. And so I tried to edit all that down to what is probably about a 20-minute talk about the game. But there's a possibility to do a full-length sort of talk if people are interested. So in the video tomorrow, I sort of leave an open question in the video, like if you like what you just saw and want to see me more, let me know in the comments, kind of a thing. So that's the status on the board. I now need to do everything that I did on this half, which I won't film because it's just repetition. And then I need to move on to the next stage, which is sort of micro detailing, textures, sand, whatnot, creating realistic textures all over the board, which will probably be a video, and then it's painting time. Yeah, that's the update on the board. Tim says, you seem under the weather. I do? I'm sorry. I'll try and shape up. I don't feel under the weather, apart from that the weather is outside and I'm probably under it, as most of it is probably above me in the sky. But no, I'm fine. Clyde Dashing says, "Ooh, a resort bunker." Yes, two-story condo with a view of the battlefield. Gabriel Brian asks, "What type of brushes do you recommend for beginners, if you have a preference?" For beginners, cheap brushes. I'd say if you're a beginner, I'd probably get a few different sized cheap brushes and eventually maybe try a cheaper natural hair brush as well, maybe after a while. I don't know what cheap brushes, like I can't really because I don't really buy many cheap brushes anymore. So I haven't got any solid recommendations. I have issues personally with sort of synthetic brushes because I find that at least the way I paint, which is probably maybe abusing the brush a lot, I don't know, is that the tip just gets crooked really fast. But, you know, some kind of big pack of cheap brushes, maybe someone else in the chat can recommend something. Of the brands out there, I feel like they're all the same, like buying Army painted brushes or AK interactive brushes or Citadel brushes. Pick your poison. But it's a good start because, you know, you don't, I mean, in theory, you could as well start with a natural hair brush, but a lot of people have this fear of like ruining the brush because it's an expensive brush. And so they like, you know, they don't really want to kind of get a little bit scared of painting because they're scared of ruining the brush. Which is why maybe just mentally using a natural hair brush when you start off is just, you know, buy something cheap and you won't have to deal with the fact that you might ruin the brush because of how you use it or whatever. But if you're looking for a sort of natural hair brush to start off with, probably Rosemary and Co. or Rosemary and Company would be a good place to start. They're on the cheaper side of the spectrum, but are still great brushes. But with synthetic ones, you know, I guess get different ones, try and find different sizes and see what you like for what. But when it comes to brands, I'm not really sure what to recommend there. Neil Blake says, "So I'm thinking softbox on the left using the white wall for reflection, or do you have a sheet reflector on your light right?" This thing is actually a light that I built myself. It's like a very big ring light with large light bulbs in it. And over there is a tube kind of a thing. Two-story condo with excellent views of strategic choice points. One not very careful previous owner, some mild to severe scorched damage. Yeah, see, it'll be in the video tomorrow, but you know, spoilers for who's ever in the chat. I built this thing not really using measurements. I was just going by eye, and you know, it kind of turned out just a little bit crooked, which is just kind of visible because it's such a geometrical building. Like a bunker is supposed to be square. If it's not square, there's something wrong with it. Also, I design it from this side constantly, just working like this. And then when I had a look at the back, it was just an open back because I want to be able to put miniatures in there, obviously, but it looked weird. Like, what's the point of having a bunker if it's got no walls? It's a bit strange, isn't it? And so as you do, you make things up as you go along. And this bunker has obviously taken some severe damage. The entire back has been blown out. There's a hole shot into the front, and the whole thing is sort of gone a bit askew. So yeah. Juicy Milk says the Ammo by MiG have some cheaper natural hair brushes to try as a beginner. Yep. Clyde Dashing. For a war transformed, have you decided on what army you're going to field? No, I haven't. So for those of you that don't know, War Transformed is a new game. Looks like this. It's a First World War army game, but with it's in a slightly parallel universe, sort of. So that it's a bit weird. There's magic and stuff, which I think is really cool, and it's my new favorite game. There's your classical sort of army factions, which is countries, England, France, Germany, Russia. And so in theory, you can field regular troops and just go with that. But every faction also has a supernatural attachment, if you so wish. So you have a witch that does magic. And you can also, depending on what faction, there's more or less sort of weird things you can put into your army. Folklore style things. There's also a faction which is really weird, which is called the Freikorps, which is sort of an alternative German faction, which is basically like weird-ass barbarian fellas and ladies, if you so wish. Tree men, all kind of these more magically suitable. But you can pretty much field anything. You know, you can field cavalry, you can have tanks, you can have regular troops with bayonets, you can have monsters, you can have all kind of things. And I haven't decided on factions yet. Sort of leaning towards having a British force, just because of nostalgic reasons, sort of. And then maybe having a Freikorps, just because they're the weirdest ones. They're the ones you can kit bash the most. But I haven't decided. Hello, Stretch. How are you doing? King Odcheese. Good morning from Central Indiana. I finally caught a live stream from the beginning. Yeah. Glad to hear it. Welcome. Hello from Warwickshire, Wild Dice Roller. Glad to be here. Glad to have you. Welcome. Mini Painting Wars. My 4-year-old said, Daddy, the painting teacher is not painting. I'm not sure if I want to label myself with the term teacher. The painting inspirer is not inspiring. It sounds better. There's a lot of other folk out there that probably do better painting teachers, but I appreciate it. Stretch says, don't forget to press like, people. Indeed. I completely agree with Stretch. The thing is, there's 60 of you in right now, and there's only 30 likes on the stream. And YouTube is weird. It just sort of only fathoms that you're enjoying this stream if you press like. And if it fathoms that you enjoy this stream, it'll show other people that it actually exists. Otherwise, it just disappears into the abyss of the darker recesses of YouTube, way below cat videos. And so the more the engagement, the more the video sort of spreads, even to people that subscribe. YouTube is a bit weird at the moment. Always has been weird, but I just can never figure it out. But I get messages from, subscribers and stuff like that. They're like, "Oh, did you have a live stream? I didn't know. It didn't show up in my feed." Because YouTube has deemed that person is not interested in my feed for some reason. So please engage in the likes. Good afternoon, Bill Making Stuff. Welcome. Hope you're doing well, Bill. For those of you that are here visiting and you've never watched Bill Making Stuff, which you probably have, but if you haven't, you should go check out his channel. He's a lovely fellow at heart. Skilldus Press. Hello from St. Louis, Missouri. Watching your stream while I clean up from a great game of Stargrave last night. Nice. That makes me happy. I need to play more Stargrave. I mean, I'm all set. I've got my crew and another crew and pirates and all of it. I've even painted a bit of terrain, just not put it in a video yet. Need to play more games. Allison says I'm good. Just a hanging tree, some goblins, painty stuff. Normal Saturday morning. Yeah. Normal Saturday morning with a hanging tree. I get you. Wolvencraft, how you doing? Hope you're well too. Welcome. Alderon, good afternoon from Southern Europe, where it is also unusually snowy. Are you excited for today's announcement that Orc and Goblin tribes will be the next army to be released? For the old world, yes. I'm very yellow. Maybe that's just my screen. I thought I'd change that on the camera. But you'll have to deal with yellow me today, yellow and bright me. I saw some images of the new orcs. I by the way, labeled this live stream Paint the Old World ? I believe, something like that. We'll get into a bit more of that. Here's my Old World box, which is essentially Warhammer when I was a kid, and I have minis still there. Now the Old World, Warhammer's Old World, is being sort of re-released with some new miniatures, but from what I can tell, mainly old miniatures made re-available. And I saw some pictures of the orcs today, and I'll be honest to say that it does not do anything for me. Does that make me a bad person? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it was something with the style, like with the new sculpted things. It kind of looked like Age of Sigmar orcs with other things on them. And, I couldn't tell it as much from the other images they've shown, which have been sort of Bretonnian knights and tomb kings, which are the skeletons. And the Bretonnian knights, I mean, it's just knights with lots of stuff on them. And so obviously they look a bit different from the old sculpt, but it's still the same sort of idea. And there's no Bretonnian knights in Age of Sigmar, and so there's nothing to compare to, really. But with the orcs, I was maybe hoping for a bit more of a retro vibe, I guess, on the new things. I'm glad they're putting out lots of different armies for the people out there that that it's not just Bretonnians and Tomb Kings for the next 2 years and then an army every now and again. I'm glad they're pushing things. But But for some reason, what I saw when it came to orcs and goblins, it didn't excite me. I thought it would, because that's been in my head, that I hope the goblins come back. And then when I saw the orcs, it was, don't know. I'll have to take a closer look, because I only sort of scrolled by it on my Instagram feed today. But I didn't look at it and go, hurrah, I'll be honest. Kits with Karen, good afternoon. Just stopped painting for tea and biscuits. I've got tea, Earl Grey with milk in it. That's me. Juicy Milk says, you're genuinely one of my biggest inspiration when it comes to mini painting. You bring such a calm energy to my hobby time and beautiful grim dark paint jobs. Well, I truly appreciate it, Juicy Milk. I'm glad there is inspiration to be shared. Hello, Alexander from Poland. Welcome. Alison Silverhair says, and remember, there is more wholesome hobby fun in the 52 Miniatures Discord. Discord access granted upon joining the Patreon, and all the cool kids are there. I agree, Alison. All the cool kids are there. And yes, there is a Patreon. And you're so very welcome. I mean, if I'll be completely sincere, the sort of financial support that comes from having a patron is sort of, a lot of the time what keeps you going as a creator. Not as in it pays all my bills, it pays some of them, but just the fact that it's always there and you have this constant support by people is an amazing drive. And it's excessively appreciated. So if you ever thought of, supporting someone on Patreon, it doesn't have to be me, but your favorite creator, really think about it, because it keeps us a little bit more sane, I think. So Serval says, do you have an affiliate link for that game you were just talking about, the War Transformed? No, I don't have an affiliate link. It's not. I'm not sponsored by these guys or anything like that. It's just a game that I picked up. I mean, I did ask when I saw that it was coming out. I did ask them if they could send me the book, which they did as a sort of review copy. So I haven't actually paid for this book, but that's the extent of the sponsoring. And I looked through it and I really liked it. And but you can find it at Osprey Games as the company that releases this book. Same company that does sort of Stargrave and Frostgrave and Oathmark, all this stuff. Osprey Games. Just go there and look for War Transformed. King Odds Cheese says, you don't look too yellow on this end of your signal. Okay, good. So it's just my screen. Because it's these Apple, they change. It's like there's probably a blue light coming from there, and so this turns yellow. I'm not sure, and I can't see what's in the camera. I'm picky with these things. James Jeremenko, how are you doing? I wonder if there will be a lot of people using third-party proxies for Old World. Titanforge and Highland Miniatures do great proxies. Good question. I mean, I don't know how much old stuff is still out there and what the prices are. I mean, I obviously know that there's some very expensive miniatures, like from the old Warhammer before the age of Sigmar. But I don't know how much just sort of bog standard things are. Like, I mean, it's definitely worth checking the secondhand market. But obviously, proxying is fine. I just don't know how many people will do it. Like, it feels like it's a nostalgic thing. on one side, it's like people who have armies from the olden days can start using their armies again, just if they change all the bases. It's like we need to change some things. We can't just give them everything for free. We need to put them to work. They need to swap out all their bases. Okay, but I'm assuming it relies heavily on nostalgia more than bringing new people in. That's my view of the whole thing, anyway. And I don't know if nostalgic people will proxy. I don't know. Clyde Dashing says, that is exactly how I felt about the new orcs. They have a Sigmar feel with different kit. I wanted something more like Avatars of War orcs, a very 90s orc. Yeah, so, okay, I'll put my bunker over there. Open my little box. I don't think I've got many orcs in here. There's an orc. You can't see it from there. Typical Warhammer, probably orc boss, maybe. An old metal miniature, probably from the 90s. And this was maybe more the style that I was expecting, which is, I guess, still the style of a lot of the reused regular troops. But yeah. I don't know if there's more orcs in here. I don't think so. It's just a pile of bits. Here's an ogre thingy. And weird kid bashes. Here's a chaos elf with 2 heads and 3 arms. Yeah. Kids with Karen says, where are you? I'm here, Karen. Hi. I'm in Sweden, in Stockholm. Josh says, hello from a very chilly Ontario, Canada, by the way. I was in Canada once, just recently. Henry Smith, yellow. It is. I am yellow. Okay. Found your channel through the algorithm magic. I'm a bit clueless about the tabletop miniature scene, but it's pretty intriguing. The attention to detail is seriously impressive. Cheers. Well, welcome, Henry. I hope you eventually find your place in the world of miniatures. Okay, I'll be right back, Henry. I just need to check my camera. I can't stand seeing myself this yellow. Okay, now I'm going to be blue, but that's just so much better. See, this is what it's supposed to look like, the bunker vibe. It's just that this thing that allows me to use my camera to stream and stuff, it has like a default setting, and it sort of restarts itself every now and again, and it talks to the camera and it says, hey, camera, make everything yellow. But this is better. Well, welcome, Henry Smith, to the world of miniature hobbying. There's obviously a lot of stuff out there, and you just need to hang around for a bit and see what bits and bobs of it you like. What are you working at the moment? Is it like Warhammer stuff, or have you found other things? So Servo says, the setting and theme seems right up my alley, so I was hoping to support the channel if I could. I'll check it out. I have friends that play Frostgrave Stargrave. Maybe I can get them into this. Yeah, I mean, this is it's a larger game, so it's sort of like an army style game. Depending on how big there's different scenarios, and you don't have to field like the largest army. You can adapt to what you're comfortable with, but it's still probably in the proximity of having 40, 50 miniatures per side. So it's more of an army-style game rather than a skirmish game like Frostgrave and Stargrave, which I think is cool. I like army games for some reason. There's something about the spectacle of having all these miniatures, doing all these things. But it obviously takes more work to get everything in order. But if you do want to support in any other way, you can leave a super comment. Or just watch more videos and press like and leave comments and tell your friends and all that kind of stuff. Jamie Mayer says, by way of obscure Simpsons reference, all were crossover, but she's got a new hat/base. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously they rewrote the rules and changed things, and maybe they changed things for the better. But from what I understand it, they changed the sort of standard, the bases, these little square things, because Warhammer Old Hammer is all about square bases. So if you have an old army, you're most probably going to have to rebase all your miniatures. Raven, greetings from Mallorca. It's nice to have your company while painting a bunch of orcs and zombies. Zombicide Green Horde. That's a lot of green. Welcome, and I'm glad to be your company. Henry Smith says, my apologies. By yellow, I meant a quirk way of saying hello. Yeah, but I'm glad you did, because the yellow was bugging me. Now I'm probably blue, but I'd rather be blue than yellow. It's not like no bunker vibes about the yellow. Exactly. Jamie Mayers was worried there for a moment because he was getting sort of sunny in Sweden vibes, and that doesn't rhyme well with the bunker setting. So Servos says, I'm 100% the same in terms of army versus smaller squad groups. Smaller skirmishes never seem to hold my attention. I mean, I like both. It's just it's a very different style game. Obviously, skirmish games, you can probably play a little bit faster and that, but you can get miniatures put together faster, and but there is a spectacle about playing a large army game. James Jaramenko says, squad-based is fun and all, but nothing beats the sight of hundreds of minis per army. Brashton says, the base size changes make sense to me. Even all miniatures were difficult to rank up without overlapping into each other, which is perfectly true. They were all on very small, like, I don't know if this is a proper example. This is like I think it's a Nurgle champion, which is a really cool mini. But its feet are hardly even, like, it's stepping over the side of the base. Maybe I put the wrong base on, but it was very tight, which I guess worked if you had, because in the beginning, if you had it's a rank and flank so-called game. So instead of just moving squads fluidly, you kind of move the entire squad in a chunk. And a lot of the old sculpts, like you'd have elves like this that weren't kit bashed weirdly. Sort of high elves are just sort of standing like this, and you can line them up real nicely. A lot of sculpts today are very open. There's a lot of things happening. They're very sort of in movement and things poking out at all edges. Like the edge of, I'm painting some Stormcast at the moment, the Stormcast Paladins. They have these spears that are seriously the spear is about this long. Say the miniature is about big, and it's holding a spear that's about this long. You'd never ever be able to sort of pile them up in a rack because all these spears would be in the way. And so I guess if they start working on a bit more sort of dynamic miniatures, then there's good to have some space, because otherwise you can't just put them together because they'll be bumping into each other. So I guess that's a good point. Clyde Dashing's elves didn't even line up, even though they were so static. Yeah. So my topic was in the vein of the old world, which is not. I don't see myself playing the game. I mean, I'm hardly keeping up with trying to get. I'm really working on my Stormcast at the moment, because I started that army almost 3 years ago, and that was my second Stormcast army. So I built a Stormcast army, and a new rule set arrived for Age of Sigmar, and the entire way that I put together my army wasn't possible anymore because of the new rules. And so I looked it all over again, and I decided to start a new army. And I haven't been feverishly working at it, but I have been putting some hours in every now and again. But in the end, now I think probably this summer there will be a new edition of Age of Sigmar, and I still haven't finished my army that I started when they released the last edition. So I'm excitedly awaiting the fact that my army won't be playable. But that's how difficult I have to keep up with the release schedule of Age of Sigmar. I just don't. I don't complete the army before they release a new update. That means that the army doesn't work anymore. And I don't see bringing the old world Warhammer into that equation, because then I'd need like 6 year release schedules to still not make it. But as I grew up with old Warhammer, I've always, nostalgically enjoyed the way the minis looked then, and I have a box of them. It's a very mixed box. There's lots of lovely miniatures, like this troll. It's absolutely fantastic. Half of the paint has already sort of worn off because it's been just, been chucked around. There's lovely dwarves with candles on their heads. Lots of weird Chaos champions. Here's a Chaos warrior. That's really cool. Another Chaos warrior. Here's a wood elf, which is also really cool. Here's another orc with drums. And there's weird kit bashes. All kind of bits and bobs. There's some that I've actually already even stripped the paint off of, because I think some of these weren't even painted. There's a Warband of Beastmen. These are absolutely fantastic. Old Beastmen sculpts. And there's an entire little array of Beastmen in here. There's some very cool old skeletons, which are like the I don't know. They kind of look like the old version of Cursed City skeletons. You can see they were kind of inspired by these. I really like them. Here's an awesome, I think there's an awesome dwarf, king, lord, something. There's a name here. Can't really see. Buggerim. I think he's got a standard somewhere in here as well. Not really sure where that went. Oh, it's over here. He's got this cape that's sort of like it's a slayed dragon, and he's supposed to have a banner sticking up. And I don't know. This one's really, really cool. And because of the return, in a way, of the old world, it does give me an opportunity to maybe just make some simple videos painting my favorite old world miniatures. Not for a game or anything like that, just, you know, painting a beastman musician because it's cool. And re-releasing the old world makes it, you know, more interesting to people. So it might be something that people would watch, which, you know, still kind of drives some things. I make a lot of videos where I don't really consider what people want to see, like building a gaming table just arrived out of nowhere, and it's just something I want to do. The War Transformed, you know, it's a very, I'm not going to say it's a game no one's heard of, but compared to Warhammer 40k or something like that, it's not like it's the biggest player on the market. But I like it, and so I want to do videos on it because I want to do videos on what I like and what my hobby looks like. And these old world sculpts are things that I've always wanted to paint, but I've just felt like, well, who's going to want to watch that? But now we're in a position of maybe people wanting to watch it, because if you just say it's Warhammer Old World, they might click the video. And so I wanted to hear your opinion on that, actually. Would you like to see me paint some old world miniatures every now and again? Just as a fun thing? Please let me know in the chat. Clyde Dashing says you could just use those random minis for Frostgrave or similar agnostic games. Indeed, there's no. It's not like I'll paint stuff that I can never use. I can definitely use them for things, but it would be nice to. I always end up with these projects, you know, like I turn my Age of Sigmar army into a project that I show on YouTube, and people want to see me do it, and they want to see me finish it, and like with a board or with painting miniatures for Stargrave. It's like things, I create a concept in my head of something I want to do and then start making videos on it, and usually it's a prolonged process. It would be fun just to have, you know, I'm just going to paint a miniature today, but use old Hammer miniatures for that. And I could definitely then use them for random games if I needed to when the need arises. But you know, I don't want to have a reason to paint them more than the fact that it would be fun to paint. Hello, Go For It Painting. I hope you're doing well. Losty says, absolutely. Clyde says I love the retro look. Go for it. Rashdon23, thank you for the donation. It's mightily kind. I wonder if Games Workshop is taking a cautious approach, releasing some old with some new to GOG interest in the game. I've most definitely. I mean, the style of the game is different because it's a rank and flank game, but you're, in my mind, inflicting on. You're touching the same territory as an already existing game. There already is Age of Sigmar. They killed Warhammer because it didn't work and they weren't making any money, and they rebooted and started Age of Sigmar. And I guess they don't really want people that are buying Age of Sigmar to stop buying Age of Sigmar. They want people to buy Age of Sigmar and the Old World. And if the Old World doesn't work out, there's who knows if they just go, well, we tried, and then in 3 years' time, it just doesn't go anywhere. But they're probably very much just feeling their way. But there's obviously, it's kind of like the Horus Heresy, but for Age of Sigmar. And the Horus Heresy seems to be working out for them. So let's hope this does as well. I mean, I like the style. I won't play the game, but I like the style. And hopefully it'll be an asset to, you can, like with Warhammer Underworlds, which obviously is Age of Sigmar, but you can, get different minis out of Underworlds to spice up your Age of Sigmar army. And in certain cases, maybe that would be possible for the Old World as well. Like, I'm very much looking forward to see what they're going to do with dwarves. And is that dwarves you can put into your dwarf army in Age of Sigmar instead, because there's not really that many exciting dwarves around. Well, there's not really a dwarf faction as much as there was, but Felix says, I like the way you paint and the way you explain your thought process while painting. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you. For me, paint what inspires you and whatever gives you joy, because those videos are the most engaging for me. This is very true, Felix, and I try and do that as much as I possibly can. But there is always that thing. I try and avoid it as much as possible, but when you start making YouTube videos, it's very difficult to ignore the fact that, you can put tons of effort into a video, several weeks of work, but if it's a topic that no one is interested in, then you don't get very many views. Whereas if there's a topic that people are interested in, you can show the exact same things, do the exact same amount of work, but get 2 or 3 times the amount of views, which leads on to YouTube generating more income so I can pay my rent. It leads to sponsors are willing to pay more to sponsor your videos, which leads to paying my rent and stuff like that. So I try and not have these thoughts, but it's very difficult to ignore, because it's like, it's a balancing ground. Benjamin says, I'm glad you're doing videos on the stuff you like, as opposed to watch what you think YouTube will like. And that's why I watch your videos. Thank you. And I agree. I think the major issue and why YouTubers are so concerned with how the video will be received is because of how YouTube works, which means that if people click the video, then YouTube will spread it. So it's that first impact. And if that first is like, I painted this obscure skeleton, I don't know where it's from, it's not even Games Workshop, and that's it, just because I think it's fun, people aren't going to click it. And so it doesn't spread, even if the video is great, and even if I do it because it's something that I'm interested in. And that leads to less people being exposed to it. So people like you won't actually know that I exist, and they won't be able to enjoy my videos. They can't find the channel. And so you limit yourself a lot. And then that can go completely overboard, and all you do is clickbait and paint Warhammer, which is, if you've watched my videos, that's not really what I do. But there is that balance there that you lose out in just reaching people. when the majority of the crowd don't click your video. They don't have to like it. They just have to click it. It's weird. Jamie Mayer says, old world-based Mordheim warband. The old school sculpts definitely have more charm for the Mordheim setting. I agree. Now we're starting to talk some expensive miniatures, though, because Mordheim is just, you know, it's like a collector's market. So I'm kind of exclusively thinking about painting things that I've already got. I do have an awesome dragon, but that's a big project, and I'm not gonna. That's not what I'll just do in a whoops with a turn of my hand, which is a two-headed chaos dragon with a rider on board, which is epic. Definitely want to do that one day, but that's a big project. I'm just going to put some paste on these minis while we're doing this. Clyde Dashing, thank you very much for the donation. I greatly appreciate it. And the little dancing robot thingy that says woot. Stretch says yes, it would be great to see some old orcs and beastmen painted. Good. Sure, I watch your productions and creativity. Would be more interested in those old world than 40K minis, honestly, but I'm probably not your core audience. I don't know what my core. I think my core audience is just nice people that are interested in painting miniatures and playing games. I don't, you know, it's very. A lot of people like it, a lot of different things. I think that watch my videos, so it's completely open. And I agree. Like I'd rather. I have a lot of fun painting. You know, I do some videos sometimes painting the Horus Heresy Space Marines. I think they're rather fun to paint because they're very open miniatures. It's just you can do so much with them. There's not much detail. There's a lot of sort of flat surfaces that you can really inflict your style upon, which is a lot of fun. But I have such a I guess nostalgic, sentimental feeling about these. Not only do I, you know, I just like the way these old things are sculpted, and it would be fun to, because I haven't painted miniatures in that style much, so it'd just be fun to tax and just to give them paint. There's a lot of stuff in here that isn't painted or has been painted, but it's half sort of chipped off, and you know, it's just a pile of really nice old miniatures that are sort of withering away. Hello, Blue Things. How are you doing? Sean Collect says, I like to go between fantasy and sci-fi. So yes, seeing some old world from time to time would be nice. Good. Felix says, the almighty overlord algorithm is the reason why I hope that more people will support creators like you on Patreon or with direct donations. It certainly helps. And so I agree. I'm very grateful for my patrons, truly. But I don't really enjoy talking about YouTube. It's like you're not here to listen to a YouTuber talk about YouTube. But so it's more objectively about the subject. I don't know how I could frame the videos. I don't think I'd want to do like, this is how you paint oil paint. And you know, it'd just be me painting. I don't do that many videos like that anymore, and I kind of miss it. I always try and tell a story and all of that, which is a lot of fun, but it would also be nice to just sort of do, this is what I painted today. And this is how it turned out, and this is what I did. As a mix-up with the rest of the videos. Wild Dice Roller says, currently clipping off part of a pile of Stargrave sprues for my new bits box. Ready for a kit bash session with a friend while reading through the Stargrave rulebook. Should be fun. Those kits are great. Is that from North Star? All the Stargrave kits are really great. So many options and sort of the possibility to pretty much build anything with anything. I also think it's great that they have a lot of like they do a box and then they do a similar box, but it's called number 2 and it's predominantly female soldiers or whatever, aliens. And that's great, and in many other places sort of sorely missed. So if you get like Stargrave and you buy 3 or 4 boxes, you've got so much stuff for Stargrave. And it all just looks so nice. And is obviously not for free, but what you get in the box compared to the major player on the market is a lot of plastic for your money. Kaffepuffen says, have you ever tried the pink undercoat for orange-yellow armor trick? If so, how did it go for you? Yes, I've tried it. I have a video that is probably about a year old, a bit less, where I paint yellow Space Marines. Going about it in a bit of... I can't really remember what I do in that one. But I do remember doing something with pink. I mean, obviously, for those of you that don't know, is if you want to paint a yellow miniature, predominantly yellow, say like a yellow Space Marine, for example, if you zenithal prime that miniature, so first you paint it with a pink or a magenta, and then you spray with like a white from the top, like a zenithal prime, so that you get white pretty much everywhere apart from like under the arms and in some of the recesses and stuff like that. You still have like a pink. If you put a transparent style paint on top of that, i.e. either use a sort of contrast style yellow, or if you have an airbrush, you can use a yellow ink or shoot yellow contrast style paint to an airbrush on top of that. Because the contrast style paints usually are transparent-ish. You don't get pink, but pink together with yellow sort of makes a bit more of an orange. And so in all the recesses, in all the shadowy areas, you get more of an orange, and on the highlights, you get more of a brighter yellow, which leads to a nice sort of shading effect on the yellow. And so it's a great way of getting a nice looking yellow, because yellow is one of those paints that people usually have a hard time painting with, and that's mainly because of the pigments themselves that make up yellow paint are not very well covering pigments. So yellow paint usually doesn't cover very well. So this is a nice way of getting a very decent yellow fast, is just to spray your miniature magenta or pink, zenithal prime it white, and then spray it with an airbrush with a yellow ink, or use a yellow contrast paint. And so I guess that answers the fact that, yes, I've tried it. I believe I can't remember what I did in that the video that I did on yellow. I have a very old video which is called Painting a Yellow Space Marine or something like that. It's more than a couple of years old, where I definitely do the same thing with the purple and the white. That turned out into a really nice Space Marine, actually. If you scroll through my videos quite a way back, you'll eventually find a rather large image of a yellow Space Marine. I painted that for my friend and neighbor Carl, so he's got it now. But that turned out really, really nice, and I used the same sort of approach with that one. But that was a very intense sort of paint job, so it was a lot of detail work and stuff like that. I've recently experimented with doing a sort of zenithal pink to white, but after that also adding a magenta oil wash, because when you zenithal prime something, you know, you get the pink underneath your arms, or in all the sort of areas facing down, but the white that you spray on top covers usually all the recesses on the top side. So what I've done is I've done that zenithal prime, and then I varnished the miniature, and then I've used magenta oil wash all over the thing that I sort of clean off with after it's sort of set. I clean it off with a bit of a Q-tip, and that leaves magenta in all the little recesses, even on the brighter parts. And then I cover that with like a yellow ink or something. And then you not only get the zenithal effect of things being shadowed that are facing down towards the ground, you also get a deeper yellow in just all the little crevices that might be on a panel armor or whatever. And that's pretty cool. But that's an extra, extra 2 steps. But it looks really nice in the end. Hello, Marcus Stratus. Good morning. Just got back from the park where it was just solid ice. I'm glad you made it back in one piece, Marcus. It's good to see you. That's not the water I should be drinking. Eric says, I think I'll paint something today. My daughter will end up painting with my paint on the palette. Yeah, I was during Christmas break, my son painted a few minis while I was painting. I realized I had all these whoops, I shouldn't have left this open for so long. It's drying. I realized I have a lot of, I think, are they called Cruel Boys? The AOS orcs. At some point when I got was that called the Dominion box, the last big box for Age of Sigmar. And I've used most of the Stormcast in there. And I had an idea that, well, I want to paint the orcs too, but it hasn't happened. And so it probably won't happen. And my son saw them and he was like, wow, these are cool trolls, is what he called them. Can we build and paint some? And I was like, of course, because that's fun. So we assembled 2 or 3 of them and he painted them, which was fun to see. It was actually pretty fun because he went up. The first thing he did is he walked up and looked at the box and he was like, I need a green, like the green on the box. I need a brown, like the brown on the box, and a red, like the red on the box. Because they're essentially sort of green orcs. They have red shields and then like a metal. Okay, I'll put that up for him on the palette. So his first instinct was to copy the box art. But that was fun. Stephen Rogers says, faded plum looks nice as an undercoat for yellow for a more desaturated look, and violet gives a browner shadow. I wonder if that was what I did. I seriously can't remember what I did in that video. If I tried different undercoats, I think I did, but it had something to do with oil washes. I believe I did the blue one, which gave some green shading. Did a pink one, which gave orange shading. I did the brown one, which gave more of a sort of grim darkish vibe that I liked a lot. Yeah. Ayrton Cruz says it's trying to get a grip on yellow video. Is that the title? That was a bad title. Trying to get a grip on yellow. Yeah. Should have been how to paint your yellow Space Marines. A yellow tabletop in 10 minutes. That sounds right, Alison. That sounds like a better title. Yeah. Evil Miniatures says god kväll, which is good evening. It is kind of, it's 5 in the afternoon. It was me thinking it's like in the morning, just because it's in the morning for so many of you guys watching. What's your best tip to do flame OSL on skin tone hair with the brush only? I was saying earlier that I consider myself to be more of an inspirer than a teacher. And that's because eventually someone asks me questions like this. Okay, so OSL, I find OSL not necessarily tricky to paint. Because it's just paint. But I find OSL tricky because usually when you paint OSL, if you're not thinking of the concept, then it just doesn't make sense. Because essentially you have a light that's supposed to be shining on your miniature. But if all of the miniature is painted like it looks like it's just, like you paint a miniature, like this blue fellow here that you can't see. It's like a blue horror painted like, it's just one coat of blue, and it's like it's standing in daylight. And if you want to paint something on there that looks like it's shining, then that thing needs to sort of shine brighter than the sun, because the rest of the thing looks like it's in daylight, which means a lot of the time when I do a colored OSL, I start too dark because I'm thinking I should have a dark, say it's a green OSL, and so the furthest reaches of the OSL should be dark green, and then medium green, bright green, and then sort of almost white at the source of the light. And so usually I find that a successful OSL means that, a lot of the miniature maybe is painted as if it is more shaded, which then makes more sense that whatever the light source is there is where the light is coming from. Does that make sense? Like if you're carrying a torch out in daylight, that torch doesn't shine yellow on you because the sky is so much more strong. You only get that torch effect if you're in a cave. And in that case, half of the miniature should be sort of almost black. And that's when you get a nice OSL effect. And I think that's why I find a few times when I paint OSL and it doesn't work isn't because I didn't paint the OSL right. It's because the rest of the miniature doesn't look like the lights, it's painted like a normal miniature, and then you just start painting something glowing and it doesn't really work. But if I would paint OSL, that's usually what I do. I have say if we're going for a green light, then I try and figure out sort of how the light would reflect on the miniature and sort of how far I want that to go, where it would hit. You sort of try and look at the angle, and whatever you see, I paint with like the darkest shade of that light. So in this case, if it's green, it would be a dark green, maybe even a cooler dark green, something with a bit more blue in it. And then I work myself closer and closer to the light source using brighter and brighter paints, making sure that whatever is shining the light then is preferably really, really bright. Alternatively, you can start with, like, say you have a magician with a globe and you actually just want the globe to be a medium green. So I paint the globe medium green first and then try and figure out, like, well, how dark should the light that casts, obviously the globe is the absolute brightest part. And so whatever's around on your hand could be pretty much the same green, but whatever's down here can't be the same green because it should be darker, because light hasn't diminishes when it, that's how you get the glow effect. Whatever's glowing is the brightest bit. I don't know if that answered any of your questions, but I've done plenty of OSL with just a brush. And I find like with non-metallic metal, in theory, I don't find the painting part difficult. The actual physical thing isn't difficult. What is really difficult, and that I don't comprehend, is how light would shine off metal. It's actually physics. It's, it's curved that way, so this bit should be brighter, that bit should be darker. This is the same thing, but with a light source. It's like, well, where would the light shine and how much would it diminish compared to how bright it is at its source? And it's more sort of about trying to practice the physics than if you've got an airbrush or if you've got a brush or whatever. I don't know if that was a good explanation or if it was just confusing, but the only way to learn is to just keep doing it, I guess, and to try and make it so that it makes sense. Yeah. Felix says, the other day I saw a YouTube video on OSL via dry brushing. It was from Artist Opus. I wanted to try that, but I'm skeptical about the brush strokes showing. I know they have I haven't played around with it that much. I know the sort of Artist Opus guys. I don't know their names. Or name is essentially not only they have this technique of the fact that it's not actually completely dry brushing. You have sort of a little bit more moisture involved in the process. So your dry brush isn't actually excessively dry, and you're not removing the paint on a dry towel. You're sort of removing the paint on something that isn't super dry. So it's sort of semi-moist brushing and not dry brushing, sort of, which it then in theory lends itself to the fact that you don't get as much sort of chalky texture as you usually do with dry brush. But what happens with a very dry sort of dry brush is the paint you're applying over and over again just sort of sticks to the paint you've already just applied. And so you just get thicker and thicker layers of these, where the paint already, you apply paint once, you do it again, and the paint just sticks to where you just put it, and you build up a texture by doing that. And the fact that when you sort of apply dry paint, it's obviously going to be more textured. But I think the Artist Opus guys have a bit of more of a, it's not supposed, their way is not supposed to be as dry. I think I could be most likely proven wrong. Clyde Dashing says, inspiring me to dig out some old hammer. I won't do the game, but probably do a diorama Kings of War based thingy mayhaps. Yeah, I mean, there's lovely minis. So many lovely minis. These Beastmen, I really love these Beastmen. They're so Beastmen. You know, this is what a Beastman is supposed to look like. And all the dwarves are epic. And yes, as James Jaramenko says, brushstrokes are fine, which is, I totally agree. I very deliberately, not deliberately, it's just the way I like it. And I don't have the patience for stippling and minute glazing and all this that is sort of sometimes required to not have brush strokes. I just enjoy the brush strokes. It's like scratch marks and texture, and I just find it cool. Jamie Mayer says, I found your inverse zenithal tip very useful for making my Mordheim squad a bit more dramatic, shadowy. Also makes them at least 50% more vulnerable to getting shot off a roof in turn 2. I'm sorry the paint had that effect, Jamie. But yes, reversed zenithal priming is fun. There's probably another fancy name for it, whatever. Reversed zenithal, there is a name for that. I can't remember what it is. It's essentially only kind of doable if you have an airbrush. One could probably try with like one of those big makeup brushes and sort of try and dry brush on it. But it's essentially giving your miniature a shadow after the fact that you painted probably most of it anyway, and you're sort of kind of done, and then you spray your airbrush from underneath instead with this sort of shadowy color, giving the miniature the sort of same shade on most of it. So you could just paint miniatures like you normally do with layers and washes or whatever, and then to get that sort of zenithal effect, you just, in hindsight, spray a thin paint from underneath, maybe even a transparent paint. And that's pretty effectful to get that sort of natural shading that, you know, would occur if your miniature is out on a battlefield and stuff. James Jaramenko says, the main guy from Artist Opus is called Byron. That's right. That rings a bell. Even Miniatures says, thanks for the input. Might try and put a light source around where I want the light source to come from onto the mini and take a photo and have as a reference. I've done that at some point in a video as well. Can't remember when. Which is like, you don't even have to paint something. You just have a small light source, like the flashlight on your phone. Then you need to take your picture with something else, or just a very, very small, like a LED light or whatever. And sort of, I mean, you can start by just shining it from where you think the light source is going to be, to give you a mental image of what happens with the light. You can then also just take a picture to have that as a reference image of where it should be hitting. But for most of the stuff that I've done, and I'm no prolific painter, you know, I've found that obviously sometimes the placement is very, very important, because it's weird if you're holding a light like this like a fireball in your hand, and for some reason your orange from the fireball is also underneath your arm, like it shouldn't be, because there's no way the light can hit underneath your arm. It should be here and here and here. It probably shouldn't be here, stuff like that. But for me, the most difficult thing is like how bright is the source? How far does that light reach? And what luminosity does it have? Is what I find the most sort of difficult. Adrian Giddings. How are you doing, Adrian? I hope you're well. Nadir priming. Yes, Nadiro. Sounds very fancy. It's like you went into a Games Workshop store and bought your minis and you paint, and I'm going to paint myself a goblin, and then you end up in a place like this and people are talking about nadir priming. That's when you go and have a coffee and ignore the world for a second. Raven says, when painting OSL, I guess you use from your background knowledge as a photographer. When did you think of light technically, or did it become like an instinct? When I set light for photography and film and stuff, it's just an instinct, obviously backed up by knowledge. I just see something and then I say, I don't like that. And so I change something into something that I like more. And I don't really know what I've done. I just change things. And in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I probably did this and that and that. But I don't think about it while I do it, because obviously I've done it quite a lot. When it comes to miniatures, I mean, I think that has just meant that I deem it important for me personally, for how I like my miniatures to look, to have a sense of light going. Usually that is just light comes sort of from above, from sort of an imaginary sky. Foreheads are brighter than armpits. It just in my head makes sense. And so I try to paint my miniatures that way. So I'm a big fan of zenithal priming and stuff like that. Just because when I see the miniature, when it's done, it just feels to me like it makes sense. A lot of sort of traditional army painting, is not done that way. If you look at a lot of like just traditional Games Workshop box art, stuff like that, your Space Marine will have the same shade of blue on the head as it does all the way down on the legs, because you paint all the blue with the same paint, you use the same wash all over the miniature, you highlight it identically all over the miniature. It's like a style. And personally, I just don't. For me, I don't like that style. It definitely works. I'd maybe even stretch myself and say that style, the sort of Warhammer box. It doesn't even have to be like fancy. It doesn't have to be heavy metal. Just the style probably works better on a tabletop. In terms of like vibrancy, because if you paint like a blue Space Marine and it's just the same blue all over, you've got this really nice vibrant blue blob on the tabletop, which is just it's blue. Whereas if I paint one, it's like always sort of gray, blue, blackish, half of it, which is in sort of shadow, and it's not, and then you highlight, so you've got this baby blue sort of head and whatever. What's left is not tons of blue. You've got lots of blacks and whites and desaturated. Like as soon as you start doing shadows, in a way, they become a bit desaturated. I know there's tricks to avoid that, like shading a green with a purple or whatever, but in broad terms. So I like that shaded look, but probably on like a tabletop for maximum impact, like something like this that I painted when I was 10, which you can't really see, but it's like, it's the same, just red all over, and then some metals and stuff like that. And if you put that on the tabletop, and it's like, great, all the red and metal ones are mine. And it just really pops. So for sort of, I can see why that style really, really works. It's just not my style. Jamie Mayer says, I think Goobertown calls it undershot shading. Well, there we are. Nadiral undershot shading priming, anti-zenithal thing. Rashton says, are there any old Warhammer miniatures you really wish were in your collection? I guess I do wish, as a young lad, that I would have taken interest in Mordheim, because I think the Mordheim miniatures are really, really cool. I think that would probably be about it. I wish I had more dwarves, because I think the old hammer dwarves are really nice. I know I have a few here. These are just so great. I built a diorama once in a video. Sorry for the noise. Don't know if this fits. And you can't really see it from there. No, this is too small. Okay, in my hand I'm holding a tiny, tiny little dwarf, and is not wearing any armor at all. It's just sort of like clothes, and it's holding a short little pike. It's like a little pikeman. There's nothing excessive going on here. There's no, the Age of Sigmar stuff. There's so much stuff going on, emblems and thingies and stuff everywhere. This is like a little dwarf pikeman, and it's so charming. It's got a charming face. It's got a lovely beard. It's got one pouch. Its belly is sort of hanging out a little bit. There's no necklaces. There's no intricate armor. There's no chainmail. There's no nothing. I've got a few of these, and they're, I just really, obviously this boss dude has more stuff going on, but I just love the fact that there's simpler miniatures. I don't know if you can see this one. This one is actually painted, so it's the same kind of fellow. And because it's so simply painted, like I could do stripes on it, like so the sort of tunic it's wearing, I've striped blue and white. And there's actually space to do a blue and white striped tunic, even for a young lad, because there's not lots of stuff in the way. And so I guess that's an answer. It doesn't have to be dwarves, but I wish I would have gotten more of the simplest sculpts, the sort of charmingly simple sculpts, because I like that. And then maybe Mordheim folk. Adrian says, I'm good. I was delayed. Well, I'm glad you're here, Adrian. Mark Flanagan, how you doing? Missed the first hour, house chores. What you thinking on the old world then? Snog, marry, or avoid? Well, we've been talking a little bit about that. I don't think, personally, the game is not something that I will be investing in. I'm already invested over my head in games. Just having Age of Sigmar is enough for me, and then I have all the sort of smaller independent things, and I say independent, that's the wrong word, just smaller, from smaller publishers than Games Workshop, and more agnostic games. Of the stuff that I've seen that they've released, so far nothing tickles my fancy. There was a question earlier about the sort of, what do you think of the orcs? And I thought the new orcs didn't. I was hoping for a more nostalgic sculpting, maybe, not what to me looks like Age of Sigmar orcs, just with different kits. But I then led that conversation to the fact that I have a box here of my old Warhammer stuff with quite a few miniatures that I think are really, really nice. And because this whole old world thing is coming back, I realized that, well, maybe I could paint some of them and do videos of painting lovely old beastmen or dwarf king fellas, funnily named Ungarim, I don't know, wood elves, or some of the actual old orcs, or Nurgle champions, or what have you. So yeah, I might do that. What do you think? Should I do that? Lee Sweeney, how are you doing? Wave, caught you live again. Indeed you did. Good to see you, Lee. Hope you're doing well. Lee Sweeney says, Old World, I suspect, will stop getting support in 9 months. Well, let's hope not. Let's hope there's enough nostalgics out there, or people that actually try out the game and realize they actually were born to play rank and flank games. They just can't stand playing Napoleonics. And that this is, in fact, a game for them. Because it's nice with a lot of different things out there for people to pick and choose from. But we'll see. Rashton says, I got very lucky. I wasn't in the hobby much for a while, but loved the Mordheim Carnival of Chaos models, so I bought them and recently managed to find all the parts to put the collection back together again. That's nice. Yeah, Mordheim would have been cool if my past self would have been interested in it. Now I'm not going there. It's just too expensive. I can just 3D print things or whatever. Nicola says, any other miniature brand models you wish to have? I don't know. Like right now, I'm contemplating what to do for a War Transformed, which is basically looking into a World War I options that probably are kit bashable, but it's a game where I can pretty much do very much what I want, so it doesn't have to be necessarily. So, for instance, in theory, you could fill Death Corps of Krieg or stuff like that, just because you think the models are cool and they look sort of like World War I miniatures. Just the guns don't fit, but who cares? But there is something that I do enjoy when looking at things like War Games Atlantic, for example. I believe it's War Games Atlantic, have plastic kits of First World War miniatures. So there's some Germans and some French and some British, I believe. And they look like lovely kits. And, you know, they're sculpted so differently from... they're not as heroic, which means, you know, they look more realistic. The guns are smaller, the heads aren't so big, the hands aren't huge, you know, stuff like that. I mean, looking at a lot of these Warhammer, sorry, looking at a lot of these Warhammer miniatures, it's very exaggerated, almost cartoonish. I mean, obviously it's fantasy and whatever, but there's a style. And when you start looking at miniatures for historical games, the sculpting is just different. And I haven't painted much of that style, and I haven't sort of worked with it so much. So I'm kind of allured by trying that out, because it'd be a new thing to try out, and this is a good opportunity to do it. I guess the downside is that a lot of things, because I've also been looking at what I can 3D print for it, because there's quite a lot of fun sort of weird World War I stuff out there, but most of that as well is sculpted very heroic, which is, you know, instead of that a weapon actually looks like a regular gun, you know, it's just bigger, even if it's the same gun, and the hands therefore are bigger, and so on and so forth. So that's sort of what I'm looking into at the moment, is what route do I take? And yeah, there's a lot of metal miniatures about from the Great War. Some of them really lovely, but metal is a pain to kit bash, and I think I do want to do kit bashing, so I'm mainly looking at plastic kits. But yeah. Stretch says, I have so many metal dwarves, every basic trooper at least twice. I like it. Seems like the past you was a sensible person who bought many dwarves. Lee Sweeney says, I do have an entire Tomb King's army in storage, so I may try if I can find a player in Portugal. But truly, Games Workshop has made it clear with all the new sculpts that they are planning. I don't really follow you there, Lee. You'll have to explain that one. I mean, from what I've seen from the army kits, a lot of it is like maybe a new hero here and there, and then mainly just reissues of the old stuff, right? Hello, Mick Langen says, great to catch a live stream. I agree. Nice to see you. Mark Flanagan says, that's the great residual effect of it all coming back. Renewed interest in all miniatures from 10, 20, or even more years ago. Sometimes just takes a herd effect to get excited. Yeah, agreed. And that's sort of, so I'm contemplating if I should just join the herd and be excited about the old things that are lying around, which, I mean, in their truest form are a bunch of unpainted, and some of them, I mean, I'm not nostalgic, so I've painted some of these. This is probably Humbrol paint. Unfortunately, it would be a bugger to strip. But there's nowhere inside of me is there a nostalgic person that says I can't strip this and paint this again. Also because they've all been in this box for so long, just rubbing against each other. Not, you know. Oh, look, here's a Terminator. This must have been from like Space Hulk or something. chaos people on horses. Don't really fancy them much. But yeah, so I mean, it's a pile of a lot of things that could be painted, and I really like this one. This is some kind of a chaos champion fellow that looks like he's made from bones. Yeah, and a bag of square bases. Adrian Gidding says, I'm getting bored of everyone having to paint Warhammer and get no revenue from their streams. All the skill in the hobby are transferable, so it shouldn't make a difference what is painted. I totally agree with you there, Adrian. But it's like, sometimes when I talk about other games, it feels like I'm going into the Vatican saying, I've got this rather nice god over in the forest in Sweden. She blesses the mead and keeps the babies from dying. Do you want to maybe try it out? Whereas to your point, like any tutorial of painting a miniature could be painted on any miniature. But I guess because Games Workshop is the absolute giant, then it's just people like to just be associated with anything that's they're familiar with, I guess. Edwin Gidding says, I'm looking forward to my Trench Crusade minis turning up. Did you back the Kickstarter, Adrian? Simbob Craft said, do you paint Infinity miniatures? They're great. Yes, I've painted a few for my Stargrave crew. There's a video where I paint my Stargrave crew, which I think is called something along the lines of getting over painter's block or something like that. And I think almost half of my Stargrave crew is Infinity miniatures. I enjoyed painting them, but I also found it a little bit fiddly. They're very, very tiny. These were the metal ones, at least, with very, very small details. That sort of on the verge of not being able to find a brush small enough to paint the details. But I love the sculpts and the concepts, and especially since I also in my Stargrave crew wanted a lot of female characters, and there's plenty of female characters in Infinity. So that's great. Mark Flanagan says, this is the inherent problem in YouTube content bubble that follows the ad dollars. That's why I like this channel, or Dave at MS Paints. Make your own bubble. Yes. We just need to convince the video sponsors of the same concept. Lee Sweeney sees lack of new sculpts. Yeah, so we were on the same level there. Yeah, there's not much new sculpts, but they're probably testing the water a little bit. Creating new sculpts is for them a rather big endeavor, I believe, in a way. Nicholas says, thank you for your answer. Miniature agnostic games is a great way to get the most of your hobby and discover new styles and projects. I couldn't agree with you more. Does anyone know of anyone? Has anyone ever seen? I know people do proxies for like Warhammer and Age of Sigmar, but it's mainly about finding a way to cut the price of, like, I'm gonna do a Space Marine army, but I can buy proxies and 3D print them, and it saves me $3,000. And so I know people do that, but has anyone seen like Warhammer 40k or Age of Sigmar armies that aren't Games Workshop and aren't proxied because it was like cheaper? Like someone who had an idea of like, no, these Roman knights are in fact, Stormcast or whatever. I've never seen that. We have, because you could buy Warhammer rules, and if you really like the game and you like to play it, obviously it's because you like the rules, but you could just swap out the miniatures for whatever you like. Like having completely different style aliens compared to the aliens you play or whatever. Has anyone ever seen that? I've never seen it. Nicholas says, people in the chat, have a look at weird World War One Gaslands 10 of 28 one-page rules and other miniature agnostic games. You won't regret it. I mean, to be fair, there's a ton of games out there, and yeah, quite a lot of them have very, very good rule sets, regardless if you want to play big games or small games and whatever. Mark Flanagan says, Space Hulk first edition with a little plastic cover to make a flamer out of the shoe-shaped box bolter. Was that what this was? Because it's got some kind of a flamer, yeah. Because I remember with my friend as a kid, I think we bought Space Hulk. I think so. And Hero Warhammer. There's all these heroes from some. Here's the wizard. Here's the dwarf. This is from like Warhammer Quest, I think. Plastic. Adrian Gidding says, also glad you're working on the board because heaven forbid any of these minis we paint actually get played with on the surface. Not the Kickstarter for Trench Crusade, the late Baccarat thing. Yeah. I am working on the board. And there's gonna be a new video released tomorrow, which will be on me building the bunker. I've already talked about that. I'm at the end of painting 10 Stormcast, which are all weirdly kit bashed into samurai gladiators. Makes a lot of sense. So that'll be the video after that, and then I'll hopefully be back with another board video. The board must get finished. Period. Nicholas says the community has to promote other games and stop fearing of missing out Games Workshop releases. If you with the community mean like people in general buying things, sure, but it's difficult. They're huge. If you kind of like trying to get people not to buy cheap furniture from IKEA. It's like, well, everyone knows about IKEA and it's the best option around, kind of. It's just a big phenomenon, and people like their stuff. They make great miniatures. I see it as sort of, the bigger Games Workshop gets, the more they expose the world for miniature painting and miniatures and miniature games. The more people get interested in it because it spreads. They've got shops, pretty much every city around the world They're going to start making movies, apparently, on Amazon, with Amazon and all this kind of stuff, which hopefully draws people into the hobby that otherwise might not have been considering it. And then, a percentage of those people start looking around for other things. It's like a trickle effect. And Games Workshop is at the top, and I think they bring in most of the new crowd. There's not many people that walk past the game store and go like, as a kid, I want to play Stargrave. They see the Games Workshop thing and just go, wow. Like I started there's no alternative minis in here. I found one skeleton that I don't understand where it's from. The rest of this box and all this stuff is Warhammer. And now, 30 years later or whatever it is, I'm interested in other things as well, but it was Warhammer that got me into it. And so I think very much the same thing would apply to a lot of people today. And it's only possible because Warhammer is so big. And I'm probably appreciative of that fact, because in the way it gets a lot of people into the hobby that we can convince into playing weird games that no one's ever heard of. Mick Langen says, I'm getting drawn more and more to metal minis. Corvus Belly and Oathsworn are my happy place. Then adding some plastic resin extras for kit bashing fix. Yeah, there's still a lot of metal minis being produced. I thought maybe Corvus Belly was starting to look into doing more plastic now. I think, the downside is price of metal is always just on a constant rise. Benjamin says, Miscast has some videos on making custom Nurgle figures. He stopped a bit ago, but all his videos are custom making things. Yes, I know. Miscast is great. His Nurgle Diaries. Adrian Giddings says, play on tabletop have used proxies fairly often because they look cool, not for the cost. Possibly also for sponsoring. Possibly. But that's nice. Callum says, not a whole army, but I'm currently building a proxy knight armiger from Solly White for my mechanics because it looks cool. That's also cool. That's what I was after. It's nice if people get to do things because they're cool, not because they're forced to. Mark Flanagan says, we need an overhead cam pointing down into that box of nostalgia magic. I agree. I have recently been using 2 cameras when streaming. Otherwise, I can just do that, and it goes, wow. But then I can press a button, and another camera films something. But I've actually been painting all my Stormcast at home, so I have that camera at home, and I was like, they can probably manage through a stream with only the one camera, but you're completely right. But if I do start painting fantasy miniatures, old Hammer, then, I probably need some kind of a fancy intro, or, which one am I going to pick out of the box today? That kind of thing. Hello, Gary Jensen. How are you doing? Raven says, an old world topic. I think you should do it if you feel inspired, despite whatever the algorithm wants you to do. I think that's the way your channel keeps being authentic and consistent within your style. I agree. I'm totally with you there. I think it's just opened up the avenue that, well, on one hand, I just kind of forgot that I had this box. and then thought that, maybe people actually would like to watch it. Dave Eden says, hit that like button, people. Like button. I agree. Do as Dave Edens says. If you haven't pressed the like button, please do. I mean, if you're enjoying your time here and you're not just sort of torturing yourself by watching a live stream you're not enjoying. But if you do, please press the like button, because it helps spread this stream to other people that can watch it in about another 2 minutes until I'm going to end the stream, because it's been 2 hours. But at least they can watch it after the fact that it's happened as company when they paint or something. Gary Jensen says, I was drawn into this hobby by the algorithm. I guess Skynet is pro wargaming. You must have a good algorithm, Gary. I like that. As you say, Clyde Dashing, do people watch live streams they don't like? Could be some kind of a mental toughening exercise. I just don't really like this guy. But I will come out of it stronger if I just sit through this live stream for 2 hours. And maybe they do. I don't know. I surely even enjoy myself, so I can't really speak up on the fact. All right. My mind is getting a little bit blown, actually. And I've got a thumbnail to finish, and a video to upload for tomorrow, and a description to write, ads to place, new video. I don't know, probably around 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon Swedish time. It's probably a good time. It's going to be me building this bunker, as well as an interview with the creator and writer of War Transformed, which should be fun, because it's a pretty. We talked for ages, and I tried to edit that interview into a shorter interview, but it's still like 20 or something minutes, and I don't think I've ever had an interview in a video before, so it'll be fun to see what you guys think. I hope you like it, and yeah, it's been lovely hanging out. I hope you have a continued great Saturday, and that you get some hobby time in, that you get to live life and be free, regardless of Old Hammer or Warhammer or Infinity or Gaslands or whatever it is, that is forcing you to buy lots of plastic and paints and brushes. And I'm just rambling now. It's been great. I'll see you around. Bye.